The point is, you have to dance on both extremes. You have to dance on the duality. You have to dance with the demons, dance with the divinity in order to find the line. But you can't figure out that line unless you go into the other space. So don't go into only the light. Don't go only to the divinity. Don't go only to that feel-good crap. Go into the darkness. Go into the pain. Go into the suffering. And then you figure out, okay, where on this line do I sit? And you can use it to live a happier, more meaningful, more fulfilling, more successful life, whatever those words mean to you.
Welcome to the Worth the Fight podcast, where we bring you powerful conversations surrounding the sensible and therapeutic use of psychedelics and plant medicines towards healing trauma. I'll introduce you to guests who, through their own personal journey and transformation, tell the Worth the Fight story. I'm your host, Matt Simpson, author of Worth the Fight, Acting for a Better World, a guide to spirituality, psychedelic medicines, and overcoming trauma. Thank you for listening. The next guest on the Worth the Fight podcast is a man that I truly admire, a dear friend, one who is mentoring me on my path, Akshay Nanavati. He wrote the book Fearvana. He's got a tremendous story of overcoming. Akshay served in the United States Marines and struggled with post-traumatic stress disorder upon returning home. He was really in it deep with the alcoholism and had a very profound moment of where the light came on. And since then, he has been a man on fire that has been channeling and focusing or shifting and transmuting his energy towards service of humanity and understanding the neuroscience of overcoming, the neuroscience of breaking addiction, the neuroscience of peak performance, spirituality, psychology. He's a fascinating man and is doing incredible things in our world. And I'm honored to call him a friend. And we had a conversation a few weeks back here in Los Angeles. And he's intense. And this is a little bit of a detour, but it still aligns with the goal and the intentions of the Worth the Fight podcast, which is really to retell the story around psychedelic medicines, around what trauma is and what our warriors are, if indeed we seek a peaceful planet in this lifetime. And Akshay is a tremendous example of overcoming, as he has whipped his demons and now is living proof of what is possible, as he again wrote this very profound book called Fearvana. It was endorsed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Without further ado, please enjoy my conversation with Akshay Nanavati. Thank you so much for listening. Akshay, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you so much for having me, brother. Such an honor, such a pleasure.
Absolutely. Great to be here with you in Los Angeles. You've come to town to conquer. You had your a privilege and opportunity to be on the Dr. Drew's show.
Dr. Drew podcast. Yeah, that was a real pleasure, real honor. He's an amazing, beautiful human being.
So sharing your mission and message of hope. What is this mission and message of hope?
The mission is around this concept I created called Fearvana. And the idea is, everybody's suffering, everybody's struggling in some way. We all go through pain in life. And most of us have been taught, the world has led us to believe that experiences of pain like fear, stress, anxiety, adversity, suffering, struggle, anytime you even hear these words, I just did a talk today, as you know, with these young kids, and I shared these words and asked them how they made you feel. And they were like, they make me feel tense, they make me feel scared, they make me feel bad. And we get cultivated this from a young age. And the whole mission is to reframe our relationship to suffering, to reframe our relationship to pain. Because if you do that, if you can smile in the face of suffering, as I like to say, if you can suffer well, then life becomes more beautiful, because you can, not only will you enjoy life when it hits you in the face, but you can enjoy the challenge of accomplishing something worthwhile. And anything worthwhile to accomplish is hard. So the mission is to help people develop a positive relationship to fear, to struggle, and ultimately use it as an access point to bliss and even enlightenment, hence Fearvana.
Wow. I love it. You're bringing the fire out from the get-go. Awesome.
Always, brother.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that intensity that you bring and that passion. What you're saying really, really resonates. I had the privilege of reading your book back in 2017. And, the book Fearvana, which was endorsed by the Dalai Lama, a profound book about fear and reframing the way that we look at fear with, and the research you did on that freaking book, man, was just like mind blowing.
Yeah,
it was mind blowing. But then to find out some of the struggles that you've been through, and to see the way that you've transmuted and you've redirected or you've channeled your energies in a positive manner towards serving others has been super, super inspiring to myself and to our world. Can you talk a little bit about some of the challenges, some of the dark times,
Sure.
and what you did to climb out of that personal hell to live a life of service?
Yeah, absolutely. You know what the sort of, I would say the birth of, or the journey to the birth of Fearvana really began when I moved to the United States at the age of 13. I had moved from India and Singapore. Soon after moving, I got very heavily into drugs, into alcohol. I used to cut myself. I still have scars on my arm from cutting myself, from
This was in
burning
your
myself.
teenage years?
Yeah, about 15, 16 years old. I was in a dark place. I lost 2 friends to drug addiction, was headed down that path myself. I mean, I was ready to do any drug that came. I was, that kind of person, any drug that came my way. And thankfully, one day I saw this movie, Black Hawk Down. You seen the movie, right?
Beautiful movie. Yeah.
Beautiful movie. That movie planted the seed that changed my life, because I just saw people willing to sacrifice their lives and give their lives for something else, for someone else. The courage it takes to do that is just awe-inspiring. I mean, to me, that to transcend the self in service of somebody else at that level, to the highest level, to even give your life for somebody, what kind of courage it takes to do that, And I didn't know if I would do that, and I didn't like that I was living this very selfish, very meaningless existence. And so I started reading book after book on military and life in combat, and then almost overnight decided to stop doing drugs, join the Marines. It took me about a year and a half to get in the Marines because I have a blood disorder that 2 doctors told me would kill me in boot camp.
Wow.
So I had to fight my way into the Marines, and not only, obviously, I survived, but I thrived and graduated infantry school as the honor graduate in my platoon.
Amazing.
And through the Marines is when I started to find the beauty in struggle. I started to seek out, Marines is obviously tough, right? So started to seek out other ways to challenge myself.
That's
so
kind of the ethos a little bit. It's the...
Exactly. I mean, the
enjoy
tagline
the
is
suck. What do you guys say?
Embrace the
Embrace
suck.
the suck.
Embrace the suck, exactly, because it does suck. Many moments really, really suck, but you embrace the suck. And, I started looking for other ways to embrace the suck, if you will. I went mountain climbing, cave diving, skydiving, rock climbing, ice climbing. I mean, you name it. Nature became my playground to test myself.
And this was along the journey progressively.
Yeah.
Once you went into the service, there was some, or was that moment, that light bulb moment when you saw Black Hawk Down? Yeah,
so that was the trigger that got me into the Marines. And then from the Marines, I started to look for other ways to keep challenging myself, because I started to find the beauty in that. I mean, I grew up great parents. I didn't have abusive parents, I couldn't have asked for a better life. I mean, I had the best life I could possibly have asked for. And so I didn't get to, and this is not to, don't want to sound this in a callous way. I would never wish kids to suffer, obviously, but the thing is, I didn't experience adversity until I sought it out. And then I got a heavy, heavy dose of it. But I was blessed with that, and that changed everything. That taught me about life.
That's interesting. I think about that, growing up in the North Shore of Milwaukee, where there's not much discomfort, there's not much adversity. And to hear you say that you came from a stable home, loving parents, and the minute that you sought out this adversity, almost as if adversity is a natural part of the human experience, and when we're withholding it, it's like we're, perhaps courage is a muscle and we're not exercising that muscle.
Beautifully put. Yeah, it is. It is a muscle and needs to be exercised. I mean, we're living in a world now of greater comfort, ease, and excess than we've ever had before. And as a result, we're getting weaker. Our lives are getting more miserable. We're struggling. We have fatter, weaker, more miserable in every way. We are getting further away from success and happiness, however you choose to define those words. Success, happiness, fulfillment, in any context of that, that umbrella. And we're getting further away from it because we're not designed for comfort, ease, and excess. We grow through adversity. We become more confident. We find happiness through the struggle, embracing it. And, this is not to say loving parents, you don't send your kids into the, to the suffering in some poorest corner of the world, but let them fall, let them experience some adversity. Sports is always a great way to do it, but push them, challenge them, experience suffering, give them perspective, go see the darker sides of the world and see that that's what the human experience is as well, and now, obviously now where I'm at, it's just taken me into a different arena of experiencing adversity in every context I could possibly fathom, but even from a young age, I think parents need to be pushing their kids to experience that. Because the affluent parents, I often see this, they overprotect their kids, and you think you're helping them. Let me kind of help them out. Let me, save them from falling, if you will, sometimes literally, other times figuratively, but you're not helping them. You're only hurting them.
Yeah.
And I've seen this all the time. I can't even tell you how many times I see this with cousins of mine, with people I know, aunts, uncles, friends, that their parents have spoiled their kids from the get-go, and now these kids are getting older, and they're suffering more than ever before. And it's not even their, it's not even their fault. Like, they've just been raised this way, and they're psychologically struggling.
Well, they don't have the resiliency.
Exactly.
Resiliency is something that, science,
most important skill.
Researchers are showing is something we train.
Yeah, resiliency, grit, courage, exactly.
Yeah, and when we're getting coddled the whole time and not allowed to fall, not allowed to experience the darker aspects of the human experience. Yeah. I could see that this could be at root for some of the struggles we have.
Absolutely.
Lack of resiliency.
Yeah. And so that's what I'm now hoping to cultivate, And so I got to experience it then big time after, after doing all these things. And then eventually I was deployed to Iraq as an infantry non-commissioned officer. So on the ground, out the wire every single day, pretty much every single day for 7 months. One of my jobs out there was to walk in front of our vehicle convoys looking for bombs before they could be used to blow up our vehicles.
Wow.
And kill me and my fellow Marines. So intense job. Intense role.
Wow.
And navigating that experience, navigating just the adversity of a war zone, But like reading Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning kind of changed my life. Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust in Auschwitz, and he talks about how, his is a different level of suffering than most of us cannot even fathom. What I've experienced is not even 1% of that, not even 1%. But my point is, though, that he talks about how even in the hell of a concentration camp, you can find meaning in suffering. You can transform your attitude. When you can't control the external environment, you can still control your attitude in response to that. So by the end of the war, I was writing in my journal that I'm really going to miss this place when I go back home. I found peace in the chaos of war, if you will.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
But the toughest battle was when I came back. Came back home.
Integrating back into society, post-service.
Yeah. I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, struggled with depression. I had lost a friend in the war from my unit. I lost 2 junior Marines to suicide. And I was just in a dark way and started drinking heavily drinking. One morning after just 5-6 days of binge drinking, there was a liter of vodka or a pint of vodka, whatever it was, and just a bottle of vodka on the floor. And this pattern of drinking and sobering up I thought would never end. So I just was about to walk over to the kitchen and pick up a knife and slit my own wrists. And I was seconds away from doing this. And just the fact that I got to such a moment where I actually wanted to kill myself was jarring, as you might imagine.
Wow.
It shocked me that I could even think that. And that was, it wasn't like, I don't like sometimes in this personal development sort of world, in the self-help world, we often say there's like this one magical thing and life changes and it's suddenly sunshine. It's not like that. It's a climb out of the abyss, and the climb is daily. It's daily. It's every single day. Nobody wants to say that, man. Like, nobody wants to say that. So we sugarcoat it. We go to a seminar, we like smiling, rah, 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 everything feels good. But no, it's like you come back to the world and the world is still hard. And you got to climb. You got to climb every single day, every single moment of every single day. And so, but that moment was the start of the climb out of the abyss. That's when I started doing the research, as you said, reading book after book after book on psychology, spirituality, neuroscience, starting to heal myself, starting to feel myself physically, mentally, spiritually. And it led me finally to this concept of this Fearvana and this ethos and this idea that my suffering, that the symptoms of post-traumatic stress are not indicative of a disorder. There's a distinction between the two. Trauma does not have to equal disorder. We live in a world that's created that paradigm.
Sure, yeah.
When I tell people I'm a veteran, they often say, and I get that it's coming from a place of love, so, I understand that, but we've set a paradigm that if you've gone to war, if you've experienced trauma, like, oh, poor you, you must be a victim. Your mind must be, messed up. But that's not the case. Trauma can just as easily equal growth.
Yeah, Sebastian Junger talks a lot about that, in his book Tribe.
Yeah.
About how, trauma is a natural part of life.
Life, exactly.
And often people have acute PTSD, post-traumatic stress is the common aspect, but the problem here back in the States is his position is that it's not, our warriors. This is a little bit off topic, but it's not our warriors that are the problem. It's our alienated, isolated, and disconnected society that they're integrating back into. Yeah. So, you're in Iraq and Afghanistan, you have all this brotherhood, exactly. you have purpose, you got tribe, there's every day you're with somebody. If you're walking out in front of these Humvees looking for bombs and things, you're in a constant state of flow, leaning against a powerful evolutionary driver to survive. And then you come back here to our isolated, cold, material world where we're largely disconnected, and it's no wonder so often our warriors struggle immensely. I mean, we have 22 veterans that died by their own hand each day with suicide. Our warriors are in this is a foundational part of the messaging from Worth the Fight, that our warriors are in the midst of a mental health crisis.
Absolutely.
Homeless percentages, I think the study was 10 to 20% of our homeless are war veterans, and so many are stuck in addiction and the opioid crisis too. So I applaud your courage for looking those demons in the eye, saying fuck you, and moving through them. And it's really, really been inspiring to...
Thanks, brother. And that's the thing, just like you said, you got to confront those demons. You got to face those demons. You can't run away from it, So like... Just recently, I was, speaking to somebody who was talking about when they had PTSD, and then as we were chatting about it, they said that it's hard being with the anxiety. So they're looking for and it's not even their fault. It's because we live in a paradigm that's kind of set that, right? The easiest way out, the instant gratification. If you go to anywhere, like they will see these things of how to walk 14 minutes a day and get 6-pack abs. The whole thing that in the world that we've set that it's the destination that matters. It's the 6-pack abs. It's the $1 million. It's the dream house, the dream car, the relationship. And that's why people spend money to win the lottery and stuff. But they've shown studies, people who win the lottery, it doesn't improve their lives. Yeah. They lose their money rapidly, and it doesn't make them any happier, because it's not about the 6-pack abs, the $1 million, the car, or the house. It's about the person we become on the journey. And the journey, you will suffer, you will struggle, and you got to face that thing. So people, even when it comes to healing PTSD, you got to go into those spaces. You got to go into those spaces, those demons. And most of us, sometimes even the positive things we do, like working or running or working out, can be a way to avoid those spaces. And for a long time, it was for me. Even I was doing these positive things, like, when I was struggling with drinking for a little while, I was still running. Like, between my sobering, I would still be able to run. I mean, I wasn't the best runner, obviously, but I was still running, sometimes marathons, And so I was still working and building a business and stuff.
You're still rationalizing and justifying.
Exactly. Rationalizing, justifying. And, but I wasn't willing to go into those spaces. And if you don't go into those spaces, you're trying to do everything to fill that void. And you got to go there. It's hard, really hard, but it's so worth it.
Absolutely. Beautifully
so
said.
Worth it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a big believer that degree to which we know the darkness, that we face our darkness, is the same degree to which we can stand in our light and share our light with our human family.
Absolutely.
That term human family was the first time I'd heard that. I read that in your book, and it's something that's really resonated with me. What is your drive to serve? You wrote this book, Fearvana, endorsed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and you're donating fully all of the proceeds of Fearvana to charities.
Yeah, all the profits are going to charities, the causes that we support. Yeah.
So what motivates you to live this path of service and to lead with service?
Yeah. It's like in the Marines, when you join in the Marines, your well-being does not matter. It's about the good of the group. So they don't care if you're having a good day. What matters is your men and the mission. And there's something deeply powerful, very profound and beautiful about serving in a group where it's about the good of the group, where you come together as one in service of each other, in service of the mission. And so that kind of starts getting cultivated from my experience in the Marines. But that's everything. That's what we're here. I believe we are one. We're on this journey as one. And even if you look at it on a selfish level, serving makes your life happier. And just on a neurological level, they've shown that when you think about your goals in the context of other people, like I'll give you an example. They did this study where they had people go into a job interview, and they had third-party objective viewers like observe these people in their job interviews and see how they performed. And they had half the group in the study told them to think about this job and like how it will benefit you, what you'll get out of it. And the other half, think about how this job pertains to how it'll be of value to others, to the world, to whoever you want to serve, to your family, something else. And, it could be one other person, 10 other person, million other people, whatever. Point is someone else. And the people who thought about their goals in service of somebody else performed far better in their job interviews as rated by third-party objective viewers. They've also done studies that when you think about serving others, it releases oxytocin in the brain, which is one of the neurochemicals they call the love hormone.
The helper high, right?
So helper high, the love hormone. And what happens is when oxytocin gets released, it helps you. It doesn't eliminate the experience of fear, but it helps you move through the fear. There's a lot of studies about this. So on a selfish level, it improves your life as well. But just even on a selfless level, I just think it just makes life more grand and beautiful, man. Like, why are we here? What is the point of me doing everything on my own for my own life? Like, when I get messages from readers, when I do talks and I see knowing that my work has touched somebody's life, like I cannot even express the depth of fulfillment I feel. As I said, I've lost a friend in the war. I found out 10 years after the war that my vehicle drove over an active bomb, and for some reason, God knows what the reason is, it didn't explode. And I don't know what that means in the grand scheme of things in the universe, God, whatever all those things may mean to anybody. But what I do know is that in many ways, I should not be here. I feel like I should have died instead of my friend in the war. I've almost been killed by falling boulders in the Himalayas, literally 10 seconds away from death in these contexts, in many different contexts. And so I felt like I'm not sure why I'm here now, but what I do know is now that I am here, it's no point questioning it. It's no point. I don't have the right to waste my life drinking myself stupid, downing liters of vodka any day, because it's a responsibility now. Man, the suffering I've run across Liberia last year, as you know, and seeing people who've lost family in war, former child soldiers, women who've been raped, people in extreme poverty, the suffering I've worked in leper colonies, just the ails of the world, the people who are suffering. When you see that, you can't be apathetic. I mean, to me, it's mind-blowing if you can, but you can't be apathetic to that. And that's what it's about, man. People are in pain. And now I believe it's my responsibility. And sometimes that burden weighs heavily on me. I'll be honest with you. It weighs heavily. Like, I get messages from readers just sharing some of the stuff they're going through, because I'm very open about sharing my struggles, as you can see. And so it invites people to be open, and they share. And sometimes it just hits me hard, man. Like the other day, I was just sitting in my room and just started tearing up just in this dark, painful space about the ails of the world and the suffering people are going through in our human family. And I feel this. I would call it like it's a double-edged sword. It's a burden, but also a beauty of that responsibility. Because sometimes it does weigh heavily, but I'm also grateful for it. I wouldn't have it any other way. And so that's what it's about, man. We're one on this journey, and I believe that I can't just live for myself. Self-transcendence is everything. And actually, on that note, Viktor Frankl also says that self-actualization is the side effect of self-transcendence. So if you look at transcend first. Yeah. And if you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, self-actualization is the highest of human needs, right? After we cross the human needs of survival, actualizing the self is the highest of human needs. And actualizing the self is a side effect of transcending the self. Mm-hmm. Transcending the self is, to me, is what it's all about. Like that's the thing. That's what everything is self-transcendence.
Beautiful, beautiful. And what comes to mind for me is the very nature of transcendence. It implies action. It implies doing. It implies moving beyond. And I think so often people are stuck on their holier than thou. They're stuck on the words. Yeah. And we we've lost as a people the respect for the doing. Like, fucking words don't matter at all. In the grand scheme of things, the only thing that can be measured is action. The only thing that is true is our actions. Yeah. So I applaud your courage to not only overcome and to live a stronger life for yourself and for your family, but to put your journey in service of our human family, and to stand tall and to share loud and proud, to really be an ambassador of overcoming. Not just for your brothers and sisters, your veterans, fellow veterans that are stuck in the darkness, but for us all. A big part, essential part of the Worth the Fight program and book, and the reason why we're gathering here on this podcast, a big part of the messaging, we were talking about this last night, is to help retell the story around psychedelic medicines, around healing, around these misunderstood healing agents. We're also looking to redefine and retell the story around trauma. Yeah. And with how much of a soft heart I have for our veteran community. I think
Which
that
I really appreciate. I love the work you do, brother. It's a beautiful thing, and I'm grateful to be on your journey in some way and to see what you're doing, because it's really beautiful work.
Thank you. And I feel that you again are a perfect ambassador for the veteran cause and veteran plight, and showing what can be possible, and for you to look your demons in the eye and to fuck them up and to move through them, and to do that with grace and integrity in service of something bigger is I'm wild and proud. And this is something, a conversation that I'm just ecstatic and thrilled to be able to share this with my audience, and to share your work. And again, highly recommend the book Fearvana. I can't plug that one enough. And Akshay takes you through his journey, and really, really lays the foundation of understanding fully, from a brain science, from a modern science, what the heck happened from the point where you were at that low point to the point to be healthy, happy, and strong and fit. And the way that you describe that through the research and through the science of esteemed doctors from all over the world is freaking profound.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. No, it was definitely a lot of research, a lot of work that went into that, but it was a beautiful journey to go through that, to figure out like all of it, the neuroscience, the psychology, the spirituality of and again, not just my stories, but some of the stories I share, people that I encountered and interviewed for the book was just amazing. I mean, I interviewed this one woman who horrible things happened to her. She had been raped when she was 6 years old, between 6 and 8, multiple times, gang raped when she was 15 by 5 people, and how she reframed her experience and who she is today. I mean, I was in tears interviewing her just at the depth of courage and strength and profundity in this woman. It was, just awe-inspiring. I was grateful to have come across people like that on my journey and to share their stories.
Beautiful. Amazing. I'm going to switch gears a little bit. On podcast number 6, we had Janine from the director from Shock to Awe came on, and it was From Shock to Awe is a powerful documentary that showcases 2 veteran families that are choosing to kick the war chest of pharmaceuticals upwards. Some of these veterans in this program were taking 30 pills per day, and to kick these pills in favor of natural medicines, cannabis, ayahuasca, and one of the wives had a profound healing experience with MDMA assisted therapy. So it wasn't all natural medicine, but MDMA assisted therapy is showing tremendous promise, as MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association of Psychedelic Studies, is pushing through that. The experience with the VA, can you speak to that a little bit?
Sure, absolutely.
To your struggles with that, and just your overall thoughts and impressions?
Sure. So what happened was I was what led me down that path was one of I was going through the drinking at the time, but to be very frank with you, is I was also struggling sexually and physically with my wife at the time, and so it wasn't a physical issue; it was a psychological issue. Clearly, we kind of knew that. So she encouraged me to go to the VA to find out what's going on. So I went to the therapist there, and they were, to their credit, they were really good people. They were genuine people. They wanted to serve. They wanted to help. They cared. They were very loving, but they were just operating from a very, very, very bad playbook. About
that's what I hear.
The modalities on how to heal, the forms of therapy, the methods, and it wasn't helping. I would often, and I take responsibility for my own behavior, no doubt, but I would often leave the VA and go straight to the liquor store, like just in this dark space, being like, fuck this, I want to go get hammered and run away from all those demons, and again, I take responsibility for that, but eventually as I started learning, there's something wrong with this. So, but it wasn't just me. I have veteran friends. One of my buddies had shown me this picture of like 30, I don't even know how many bottles of these pills that he'd been prescribed. Then they get one for the anxiety, then they get one for sleep, then they get one to combat the side effects of the other one.
Crazy.
And it's just, we should not be putting that kind of stuff in our body, in our minds, in our spirits, man. It's just far from healthy, and how destructive it is. It's horrible. Thankfully, I can't, to be honest with you, remember if they just subscribed me things. I think they did, but I just chose never to take it.
Okay.
Yes, they did, but I chose never to take it. So thankfully, at least in that, I knew. I just knew that. Look, obviously, I wasn't being healthy. I was drinking and stuff, but I knew that wasn't the way out.
Yeah.
But I know people who've been on, and it's just, It's horrific, man. Like, that's not right what we're putting into our bodies and our minds in that level. It's and I've heard so many stories. Like, I'll give you another quick example. I have a friend who went to a therapist, and the therapist told him, when a cucumber becomes a pickle, it can never go back to become a cucumber. So you're like that pickle now. And you're basically telling this veteran
so defeatist
that you're that you're messed up now for life. You're done. You're this pickle. You're gone. I mean, how do you say something like that to somebody? You know, I have another person I met at one of the seminars I was at. She wasn't a veteran, but she had gone through some pretty horrific trauma as a child. And some therapist told her that it's like, imagine you're driving a car, like a broken car with a messed up tire and a steering wheel is broken. It's never going to ride smoothly on the road. It's just going to be broken, and it's going to kind of be making noises as it goes down the road. You're like that now.
Wow.
How do you tell somebody that? That for the rest of your life, and the problem is we sometimes, and it's nobody's fault, we ascribe expertise to this person, right? They got the 3 letters, they're a PhD.
Sure.
So we ascribe expertise to this person. So when this quote unquote expert says this stuff to us, we're like, oh, I guess they must be right. You know, they're the ones who know stuff. And it's no, man. Like, I don't have the letters behind my name. I'm not a PhD, but I'm not saying this in an arrogant way, but I can tell you for a fact, I know a hell of a lot more than many. Obviously not every, but many of the doctors that I've come across in this work, because I've done the work, I've lived through it for one, and I've researched it. And any day of the week, I would always go to somebody who's done the thing and lived the thing more than somebody who's studied the thing.
100%.
Like, even in a business context, I would rather study from somebody who's, let's say, dropped out of high school but went from zero to building a $100 million business than somebody who studied business and is making $20K a year or whatever it may be. And this is not to insult anybody, but you get what I mean. Totally. Study from the person who's done it, who's lived through it. And I'm blessed to have lived through it. You know? So it's just horrific, some of the stuff out there.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I remember that conversation we had back in 2017 when we first connected after being introduced by Derek Sivers. You'd mentioned that very same comment about the pickling and not being able to go back, and about how heartbreaking that was to hear and to hear again. And again, how we give authority to people. And that's part of the problem with this veteran plight is that our warriors have consigned away their warrior spirit to this bureaucratic healing mess.
Yeah.
And it's a problem. And it's not all the VA's problem. It's 2 wars and 16, 17, 18 years of deployments. It's a lot of freaking work, you know? Yeah. So, you know.
And yeah, it's not just the VA, right? It's the environment that we live in. It's the societal paradigms that we've created. I mean, we live in a world of instant gratification, looking for the easiest way out. That's just the world we're raising our kids in. Everybody's in this, and we are very much at the effect of our environment. From the day one, we're soaking in the external environment, and it's shaping us. It's shaping our belief system. It's shaping our brain on a neurological level. So even with the high degree of self-awareness, you can still sometimes be at the effect and victimized by external environment. So it takes a lot to rise above that, rise above the shit, that's outside. And because most of the world is creating these horrible paradigms and belief systems. And that's what I'm doing with Fearvana, is combating that.
And then Akshay comes along.
And that's what I want to do. I'm building like the Fearvana empire, man. These series of products and services, multiple verticals, to create new paradigms, to create new belief systems, because we can shift. I mean, like, I'll give you an example of this. Dr. Martin Seligman, amazing researcher, somebody I read while writing Fearvana, he went to West Point and he asked the cadets, how many of you have heard of the word post-traumatic stress disorder? And it was like 95% of people, right? And then he asked, how many of you have heard of post-traumatic growth? And it was less than 5%. And his whole point, that becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. We've set up a paradigm that trauma equals disorder, that veterans go to war, before you even go to war, you kind of go to war expecting to come back messed up in the head. Nobody goes to war thinking I'm going to come back stronger. And I'm not condoning war. That's not the point. The point is, we've created a paradigm that trauma, that suffering, that pain, that adversity will mess you up, not make you stronger. And we kind of know it does. Like, people say, stretch your comfort zone. But I'm saying at the most extreme level, it's like not just embracing suffering, not just embracing the suck, but seeking out the suck. Like, if you don't seek out struggle will find you anyway. We all know that. Like, everybody's suffering. Yeah. We see people at the top of the game who seemingly have everything, right? Like money, power, fame, recognition. They're still suffering, man. So you got to keep seeking out that next worthy struggle. And that's what I mean. It's a daily grind. It's not this bullshit we sometimes see. You go to a seminar, you smile, rah, 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 all that nonsense, and life will be grand and sunshine and rainbows. It won't, man. It will be hard. But that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love this mission. What comes to mind for me is, if you heard of the term, I heard Dr. Ben, or I don't know if Ben Greenfield's a doctor, but he's a fitness guru who talks a lot about the hormetic value of, for example, like fasting for 100 days, probably not good for you, but fasting for 16 to 16 hours, doing intermittent fasting, or fasting 3 to 5 days, somewhere up, these longer, or sitting in a sauna for 3 hours or 4 hours could kill you, but the sitting in a sauna for 30 minutes can add tremendous value.
Yeah.
And I think that, having that outlook, or the same thing with cold, if you go into the ice cold for 3 minutes, tremendous value.
Yeah.
If you go into the ice cold for 10 minutes, you might die of hypothermia. So strategically targeting adversity, stressors, where we can stress our body in a healthy, controlled manner to practice discomfort, to suffer well, I love this work of shifting the belief system around this, and ultimately what could be possible. Because I mean, like you say, the struggle's gonna find you, so you might as well find a worthy struggle.
Yeah, exactly. Seek out that worthy struggle. Exactly. And I call it a worthy struggle, not like, I don't like the term follow your passion, because we have plenty of passions, and it often conveys this idea. The primary problem with it that I have is that it conveys this idea that if you follow your passion, life will be sunshine and rainbows and magical and unicorns, but it won't, right? So I call it a worthy struggle because it will be hard. It will be a struggle. But what's your worthy struggle? It could be writing a book, writing movies, playing chess, playing basketball, whatever it may be.
And the worthiness represents, we've been talking a little bit about Simon Sinek's book, The Infinite Game. He talks a lot about about aligning ourselves and our actions with a just cause, and about how that really lights us up and gives us that extra gusto when we're working towards something, that we're working towards an infinite game. And that notion, kind of lost my train of thought. What was we were talking about the
worthy struggle.
The worthy struggle. Yeah, the worthiness.
The worthiness.
The worthiness and the just cause. There's something, in the word worthiness that represents, of careful, given thought, something that is meaningful and deep, that matters.
Yeah.
And I just love that terminology and the way that you share that messaging.
Thanks, brother. Yeah, you find your worthy struggle, create that alignment of mind, body, spirit, and the mission. And that's what I mean by worthy. Like, I'm not, like, sometimes when I do talks, I don't tell people, you don't have to do what I do. You don't have to climb mountains, ski across ice caps, run ultra marathon, spend 7 days in darkness, all this kind of stuff that I do. Find your own worthy struggle. That's my path, and do it if you want. But my point is that, like, sometimes when I share, people think, oh, I got to do that in order to grow. No, that's not at all it. Like, find your own worthy struggle, and then allow
to
it
your
to
own values,
to who
vision,
you are, to who you
goals.
want to be. Exactly.
Yeah, your own past,
exactly.
your own experience,
exactly.
The own way, special gifts that one has to serve.
To who you want to be for yourself, for the world. And when you do, like, allow that to consume you. Like, consume you. This idea of balance is bullshit, man. Like, work-life balance, no. Like, that shit is my spirit. Like, it's my life. It consumes my world, the Fearvana mission. I live, sleep, breathe it, I mean, I talk about it. I talk about my personal life in work, like right now, and I talk about my work and personal life. Like, it's not the separation of the two, it's everything. And let that mission, let that path consume your soul, and let it become you, all of you.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. So your legacy, this is something I was thinking about. We could have a whole episode on this one. We were talking a little bit last night about some BS self-help advice. What are a few BS self-help advice that are popular in the mainstream that you think differently on?
Yeah, good bunch of them. So let's start with one that top of my head is this idea of I am enough. I see these hashtag I am enough campaigns, and that's complete nonsense. And I'll talk about the distinction. Okay, so I am enough is if you set up a paradigm, set up a belief system, then I am enough. You believe you have that's creating a thing that I have arrived. I am now enough. You've never arrived. The only arrival is death. Because what it says is, and it's the same mentality that the destination is what it's about. I get there, then I'm enough, then I've reached, then I've arrived. It's not. I know I'm never enough. But it's in the striving that's the beauty. It's in the striving to reach that next phase of the evolution, of this personal evolution, spiritual evolution, financial evolution, physical evolution, whatever it may be, whatever arena you want to call it in, is the striving for that is the path to happiness, the pursuit is the path to happiness. And this doesn't mean that you cry and say, "Oh, I'm worthless and I'm a piece of shit." It's that you acknowledge that I am great. Like, you own the ego. This is another thing that I think is flawed in personal development, is that ego is the enemy. Ego is bad. Look, if you want to be great at something, you have to believe you are great. You have to own your greatness. And athletes are the best example of this. Like, the best athletes in the world have a tremendous ego. Muhammad Ali used to say, "I'm the greatest." I knew that even before the world knew I was. He used to kept saying, "I'm going to show you how great I am." Tom Brady has this great clip when there was the Patriots he said when the Patriots selected him, he was like, "I'm the best decision they've ever made." That's massive ego. Own that ego. Own your greatness. So it's not like I am enough. It's not saying I'm worthless. It's saying I am great, but I'm still not enough. That duality can coexist, right? I know I'm badass at what I do, but I'm never enough. I'm never enough. So don't create that belief system. Words have power. Words have a lot of power. So don't create that belief system that you've arrived. And that's bullshit. And it's a soft, like, so much of self-help is designed, it's about feeling good. Feeling good all the time. You go to these seminars, you dance, you do rah-rah. I mean, that's why there's this term called seminar junkies, and I've been there, I get it. I've seen people, like, it's not about feeling good, man. Like, when I do motivational talks, even to, I don't even like that term, motivational talks. I don't even like, so motivation is also crap. Yeah, like, when I do talk, especially to younger kids, I didn't do it when I speak to 10-year-olds, that's maybe too much, but I have a line. But when I do to college students, I'll go in there and say, look, my goal is not here to make you feel good or to make you smile. I don't care if you leave this room smiling. My goal is to leave you with tools and resources and insights that when you go back to your life, you will experience pain. You will. I know this. I don't wish it, but you will. My goal is to give you resources to navigate that pain. So another bullshit that we hear in the personal development realm is be positive all the time. Like, just be positive and smile, and, like, things are going bad, just be positive. And that's garbage. It's far more valuable to embrace the negative. And there's a difference between empowering and positive. It's not like being negative, if you will, quote unquote, still can be empowering. I'll give you an example. I did a talk once, and this woman came out to me after my talk, and she had gone through this horrible marriage, right? Like, somebody, like, her ex-husband is a terrible human being, like, beat her, broken arm and stuff like that. Thankfully, she left. And she had read a lot of these self-help woo-woo books, feel good all the time. And she was saying, it's like, she told me I'm not going to name the books. I don't want to talk trash about anybody in particular, but she was telling me some of these books she read, and came to me and she said, it sounds like you're saying not just to be positive all the time. And I asked her, do you still have negative thoughts? She goes, yeah. I said, of course you do. Of course you do. You've gone through this dark time. Of course you do. You got to learn to embrace the negative and use it. As another example, I'll talk about in my own experience.
Almost in jiu-jitsu style, where there's energy there, there's power.
Energy,
there,
exactly. Power
and ignoring it and is not helping the man.
It's not helping him. Yeah. Like Carl Jung put it beautifully, and you touched on this earlier in your own way about embracing the darkness. Carl Jung said that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. We live in a world that's always, in personal health, it's all about feeling good and looking to the light. But you got to go into those dark spaces. You got to go into those dark spaces. So, for example, with me, I lost a friend in the war, right? I talked about that. And for a long time, I was running away from my guilt. Everybody told me not to feel guilty. It's not your fault, and I get it. It's not, irrationally, I get it. War, you can't predict. It's uncontrollable, all that good stuff. But emotionally, it didn't change the fact that I still felt guilty. So what I did for a long time, I had a picture of my friend that I lost in the war and said, this should have been you. Earn this life. Earn it. And that's some dark stuff. That's some intense stuff to look at. But my darkness became my ally. That's how I actually finished my book, was looking at that picture and saying, I got to earn this life. And embracing that darkness, going into those spaces, embracing the negative, using the darkness. If you have somebody who told you you're not going to amount to anything in life, your parents said you're worthless, whatever darkness, trauma, pain you've experienced, use that. Use it as fuel to drive you forward. And there's a fine line. Like, to offer a caveat about that. There's a line. So, for example, now I've shifted the words of that picture from that friend, and no longer says this should have been you, earn this life. Now it says honor his death, earn this life. Different words, maybe subtle, but huge difference, huge distinction. Because to me, the guilt was taking me too far. It worked for a little while.
At a certain stage of your evolution, it was something that was needed. I needed
it, exactly.
Yeah.
It was needed. But what got you here won't get you there, right? You have to then reshape, create new paradigms, create new mental models. That worked for a long time, but I realized that it was going too far, and I was living a pretty hard existence. And I'm still wrestling a little bit and navigating the muscle of joy and happiness and embracing that it's okay to be happy, because for a long time I've just struggled with guilt about even feeling happy, that there's so much pain and suffering in the world. I see it. I've seen it within and without in the external world. And so sometimes I felt, why do I get to be happy when there's so many people suffering? So it's still a muscle I'm building, but I've gotten a lot better at it, and that's why I've shifted those words, because I realized I was going too far with that. Yeah. So the point is, you have to dance on both extremes. You have to dance on the duality. You have to dance with the demons, dance with the divinity in order to find the line. But you can't figure out that line unless you go into the other space. So don't go into only the light. Don't go only to the divinity. Don't go only to that feel-good crap. Go into the darkness. Go into the pain. Go into the suffering. And then you figure out, okay, where on this line do I sit? And you can use it to live a happier, more meaningful, more fulfilling, more successful life, whatever those words mean to you.
It's powerful. That really resonates with my personal healing journey and experience as well. The aspect of leaning in to the grief, leaning into the pain, leaning in, crying those tears, feeling fully those emotions, and honoring those tears and pain and struggle and some of the challenges that I had on my path and my journey. And Jamie Wheel, one of my heroes, he wrote the book Stealing Fire. I think I reference every freaking podcast here, but he touts the value of catharsis, and it makes sense, like energetically, like when we're unburdening ourselves of these emotions and letting tears out as men, it's becoming less taboo to talk about feelings and talk about emotions. But I think that there's a paradoxical, as Brene Brown said, talks about the paradoxical power of vulnerability. And when we're vulnerable, we're honoring our truth, and that's really, really profound. Your sharing and being open and being a beacon for others, to essentially, and leaving a guidebook and a map in your wake.
That's the plan, and I read that in your book about how you embraced the trauma, went into those spaces, and that's why I loved it, man. Loved it. Really resonated with it, because in my experience, not just in the experience, but even in the research, it would indicate it's just a better way to go about it, man. It's the path to healing is you got to be with that pain and go into those spaces, and then you'll find the light in the darkness, not running away from it. Yeah.
So you had, speaking of darkness, you had a 7-day darkness retreat. Tell us about that experience, and what was your experiences and the big takeaway. I think we're 3 to 6 months out now on that.
It wasn't too long ago. I spent 7 days in pitch darkness. I can't see your hand in front of me. Darkness,
Germany, right?
It was in Germany. I had to pull a darkness retreat. 7 days in pitch darkness, isolation, and silence, just to confront my fear of stillness. To be honest with you, what happened and what sort of inspired that was last year, I had gone through a pretty challenging divorce. It kind of reopened a lot of my demons and new kind of suffering, and I ended up breaking my sobriety. And I don't like that. I don't like that version of me. I know how bad it can get, and so I knew something was missing. I had to go deeper within. So I decided to go into the darkness to find, because the value in that is when you shut off your visual senses, you have nowhere to go but within. You can't. Your consciousness has nothing external to latch onto, to have conversation with. So you're forced to go within. And doing so was a very, very profound and powerful and humbling and beautiful experience. I mean, I was journaling in the dark. I got a lot in the dark. I was journaling and I got answers to things I had been struggling with. And I'm not saying my answers are the right answers, because I don't think there's one right answer, but I got answers to the nature of God, the nature of enlightenment, the meaning of life, the nature of the self, all these things that I had been, very, very abstract existential questions about the nature of life, why are we here? And I got some beautiful answers and very profound answers to that. But I would say by far the most powerful thing that I experienced was coming back into the light after 7 days. After 7 days of that and opening my eyes to the light, I just remember sitting there thinking, there was kind of two thoughts that went through my head. One was, I wish I could look at the world every day through these eyes. And just the way you see the world and the light and the just around you after being in darkness for 7 days. That was one thought. And the other thought was this like profound sense of gratitude for every bit of pain and suffering I've ever been through in life, because I realized that, and I kind of knew this through my work with Fearvana, but I experienced it in such a visceral way and a tangible, like just felt it and a knowingness of it, that you cannot really see the light that way unless you've been in the dark, right? And obviously I mean that exactly. I mean that literally and of course figuratively, that you cannot really experience the tremendous power and beauty of the light unless you've gone into the dark. and you got to go
profound.
there.
That
And
is-
see, I mean, many of us are experiencing it anyway. Like life hits us that way, but we don't allow ourselves to go into those spaces to really confront it.
Yeah, powerful, absolutely powerful. I think that this, you sharing your story, this movement that, this is an invitation that is, I'm seeing and hearing more and more of as people that are doing special things in our world are raising their hands and talking about their struggles and talking about, where they're drawing inspiration from. The Tim Ferrisses, the Aubrey Marcuses, the Joe Rogans, these people, these luminaries that are moving our world and really asking entirely different questions to some of these creative challenges that we have as a people. Time and time again, it's referencing the dark and referencing the pain and the struggles. And I was, just listening to a tape today of Napoleon Hill, and he had researched 500 of the most successful industrialists that had built our country, and without exception there was a darkness and deep struggle and deep pain in every single one of those influential men, the Carnegies, the Harris Bank, the guy that Thomas Edison, all these guys. I mean, I went a little old school on you here, but that seems to be a common thread. And as we're breaking down and exposing these comforts, some of these creature comforts that we have, that are literally killing us. I think that we're giving an invitation for people to look within and find whichever way they want to confront their darkness, whether it's through a darkness retreat, or whether it's through a psychedelic medicine, or whether it's through a 10-day Vipassana retreat, or if it's through the myriad of ways that we can confront what lies within. So I appreciate your contributing to this sane narrative of what we are, and what's essential if we're earnestly seeking to live strong, healthy, happy lives for ourselves, our loved ones, and our circles of influence.
Yeah, likewise, brother. Love the work you do. Really resonate with it deeply. And that's what we're here on this fight, man. It's, like you said, worth the fight to be on this mission to help our human family navigate the pain and the suffering that we're seeing so much of out there. And helping them embrace that suck will actually, I like to say, if you seek out easy, life will be hard. If you seek out hard, life will be easy. So seek out that suck. Embrace the suck. Seek out the struggle.
Seek it out. So where can people find you?
Fearvana.
Connect with you.
Fearvana.com, Fearvana. You find me on there. My social media is all Fearvana, YouTube, Instagram. The book is on Amazon. As you mentioned, all the profits go to...
too, right?
It's on Kindle, paperback, and Audible.
Voice, right?
In my own voice.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully that's a good thing.
Yeah, it is.
And all the profits go to beautiful causes we support. We support these young girls who are victims of sex trafficking, to former child soldiers in West Africa, and very, very, very grateful and humbled to be a part of that. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your awe-inspiring words and work,
you,
and the strong masculine expression that you share with our human family, and the way that you share your experiential spirituality with so much gusto is super inspiring.
Thank you,
any
brother.
parting words that you'd give to somebody that might be struggling with post-traumatic stress, or somebody that might be having mental health challenges, someone that might be thinking about looking within, embracing the long journey of getting right?
Sure, yeah. One of the most profound things you can do, this was kind of the shift when I climbed out of that abyss, and from that point that I was on the brink of suicide, was to release your self-identity from these moments. This is probably one of the most powerful things I can say, is you're not your thoughts, your feelings, or your experiences. You are the thinker of your thoughts, the feeler of your feelings, and the experiencer of your experiences. There is a space between what is and who you choose to be outside of what is, and it's hard when you're in it to navigate that space. Like as an example, I've worked with people who have depression. They'll say things like, I am depressed or I have depression. Watch yourself. Don't say things like that. Don't say I have post-traumatic stress disorder. Our words become reality. Don't say say that my brain goes through a state of depression from time to time, but I am not my brain. My brain is not who I am. I am not this pattern of my brain. I never say I was an alcoholic. I don't like labeling myself. I'm never going to call myself. Why would I ascribe that to my self-identity, that I'm an alcoholic? No. Who I choose to be is not an alcoholic. I'm Fearvana, man. I'm the legend, right? I'm going to be great. I'm going to own that, and not ascribe. So to release your self-identity from the isness of the struggle you're in, that you're not that struggle, you're not the darkness, you're not that pain, you're not the suffering, you are more. You can transcend it. But in order to transcend it, you have to release yourself from the self-identity of that pain. And that's how you will then say, okay, I'm not these things, I'm not these thoughts, I'm not these feelings, I'm not these experiences, I am more. And who I choose to be, then I get to create. And you get to create that. I don't believe there's a self to find, there's only a self to create. And that's why I mean by release that self-identity of these things and go create yourself. And you get to create yourself every single day. That's a challenge, but it's also beautiful because you get to create that. You're not forced into anything to become who the world has told you to be, what you've been through in life. You get to create that every day. And there's a beauty and a struggle to that. But that's what it's all about.
Love it, man. Super inspiring.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother, for sharing your gifts and for taking this time and for being the change.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Such
Deeply
a pleasure.
Honored to have you. Much love.
Much love to you as well, brother.
Peace. This has been Matt Simpson of the Worth the Fight podcast. Thank you so much for listening. You can learn more about our mission of hope and healing at worththefightbook.org. Please rate, review, and share this episode. Please help us expand our circle of influence and get these vital conversations out to our human family. Also, if you are in a financial position to support the show, you can help us push forward these conversations with monthly donations on Patreon. This podcast is a tremendous amount of work for me, and I have stellar guests in the queue. Please help if you can. Thank you for listening to this programming. Much love, y'all. Peace.